right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Africa on Chain. We're all based in Africa. We're doing a series on blockchain for dummies. Today is episode 1. What is a blockchain? On the other side, we have Jacques and Piro from Inversion. If you guys just want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, perfect. So Inversion, we started about 4 years ago. Piro and I have been working together for probably 15 years. I started coding in 1997, so really long time ago. Loved it, never wanted to do anything else. And we have built a team in the last 4 years that is really great, passionate about excellence and delivering value. And we enjoy building on tech. And we got into Cardano about probably close to 2 years ago now, and really loving building solutions on it, and love the ethos of where the blockchain and the community is going.
Cool. And then you have Piro on that side, and you guys have been together for quite some time, yeah?
Yeah, we've worked through, together for 15 years through different companies. It's been 15 years that we've never worked apart in the.
That's why they hit.
Totally clumsy answer there.
Yeah,
It's all
so
good.
we started out at an engineering firm about 14, 15 years ago. And then we worked for a few startups, one or two that we were also a part of. And then Inversion is kind of the first attempt at our own thing, which we started together. Have a great development team already built up. And trying to move and shake a bit in the blockchain world.
Nice. And it's
And
an
learn.
interesting sort of relationship because we've actually worked with you guys before, and we're actually actively working with you guys on development from our side. Well, everybody just calls me Patty. On the line we have D. We met in China in 2006, years back, and just became good mates and spent about a bunch of time in China, and then eventually got into marketing for agencies, and eventually started our own agency, and ended up working in the blockchain with the Art Bank, who we are now full-time working with, and that's where we're coming from in Cape Town. And so if you guys are keen, we can just jump right into what is a blockchain. So I think from our side, it'd be interesting to answer the question, what is the difference between blockchain and crypto?
All right,
Can you
maybe
guys help us out with that one?
I'll take that one. So you can see they're used quite interchangeably, but they're actually quite different things. So blockchain is the technology that you use, and you can see crypto as the assets on the blockchain. So blockchain is the thing that facilitates things like digital transactions, keeping a record of what funds are in different wallets, which we'll dive into a bit later. And crypto is things like Bitcoin, ADA, Ethereum, all those kinds of different assets that you can, NFTs, all those kinds of things that you can store on the blockchain. So blockchain being the technology and the entire thing kind of encapsulated, and then crypto being the assets that's saved on that on different kinds of change. Obviously, you have Bitcoin, you have Ethereum. They're different blockchains, and they also store different assets.
Okay, awesome. So if we were to put an analogy to that, like we would say that the blockchain is the bank and the crypto is the currency. Is that a stupid way of putting it, or is that make
Sure,
some sense?
sure. I think that's a good analogy for the layperson. So the bank is facilitating the transactions, and they have a bunch of software and hardware that manages your money, and the money is the actual crypto. So that's also what blockchain is trying to disrupt, right? Partly is that kind of like storing your money in a bank rather store it via the blockchain.
So that concept basically is the bank is a centralized authority where blockchain is a decentralized application, and that's the biggest difference in using that analogy between a bank and the blockchain.
Yes, so just to explain to the users also what the concept of decentralization and centralization means is obviously when you put your money with a bank, you give them your money and they're kind of in control of it. It's, you know, if you give your money to ABSA or, you know, whatever bank you bank with, they have your money and they're in control with it. And if they somehow lose it, it's gone. You know, that's just how it is. But with the blockchain, there's mechanisms essentially where it's not just one authority controlling the blockchain, but it's a you know, a distributed set of nodes, which we'll get into later. But that gives you essentially the sense of nobody's in control, and you're essentially in control of your own funds.
Awesome.
The key difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's sort of a natural segue then to talk about, okay, well, how is the money stored, right? So, you know, with a bank, you have an account. With blockchain, you have a wallet or a digital wallet. Can you tell us a little bit more about what a wallet is in the sense of blockchain and cryptocurrency?
Well, maybe Jock, you can first just explain, because Jock is a very good analogy, kind of just to explain how the blockchain works, and then we can move on to how a wallet works.
Yeah, let's maybe dive into what is a blockchain. I think let's answer that question. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So the analogy that Piero was referring to is that of an Excel file. So if you can imagine, we're assuming here that most people have had experience with Excel, so hopefully it's tangible. So you've got an Excel file with one sheet in it, and there are columns along the top with headings such as recipient address, sender address, transaction date, as well as the amount that was going to get sent. So let's use Bitcoin as an example, blockchain. So this is really a ledger. Now you can start filling in rows in that Excel sheet to say who sent Bitcoin to whom and when it was sent. And you can record that. So let's say if we had a really small community and the people trusted me, I could keep record of, you know, who sent funds to other people on my Excel sheet on my computer. But I'm the only one that has that record. Now I could maybe, you know, email it to other people every week, but so that they also have a copy. But they don't have the authority. I'm the authority because I'm the only one that can make entries on this sheet. And so the problem there is centralization, because I am the one in control, and it's trust. They have to trust me that I'm recording these things. Firstly, I'm not making mistakes. Secondly, that I'm not being malicious. And what the blockchain allows you to do is to distribute this Excel file. Well, it enables a number of things, but let's say for distribution's sake, it makes a copy of this file automatically to everybody else that's part of the Bitcoin network. So the moment an entry gets written into the file, it gets signed by me, which we'll get to a bit later. But what signing means, it's a way of proving that I may spend the funds. And then that file gets distributed to everybody. And now the next time an entry gets made into the sheet, it can be made from any of the other nodes on the blockchain. And it gets distributed to everyone. So everyone has an exact copy of the blockchain. And if I now decide I'm going to be malicious, Whereas previously I could do it because I was the authority and the centralized person that was trusted. Now I come and I try and make a change to someone else's transaction that I have a copy of. Maybe that transaction happened yesterday, and now I try and distribute this file back again into the network. And everyone else will say, will run a check and say, hey, your records don't agree with our records from yesterday, and therefore we reject what you're trying to do here. So there's a consensus among many that whether transactions are legit or not legit. And that is what decentralization brings in, or one of the things that the blockchain brings in. So it's a store of information, really, with no centralized authority.
And just to expand on Jock's Excel analogy.
You mind if I quickly chime in there? Because what you were saying is about like everybody gets a copy of it. This is probably automated, right? But it just makes it publicly available for everybody to view. And on the blockchain, when you say decentralization, so there's no central authority that runs or is the authority on this. It's sort of peer managed, as it were. So it's not a bank like Chase Manhattan that holds all the details. And if they switch off the machine, the blockchain will die.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, cool. Sorry, Peter, I just wanted to interject.
No, all good. So just to also expand on that analogy of the Excel file. So also how you can see it is there's not just one Excel file. You can see it as so Jock explained how this Excel file works now, but a bunch of transactions gets batched. So a Excel file would be handled at a time, and then you would get different kinds of Excel files linked. So once an Excel file has been processed, it gets linked to the previous Excel file, right? And a new Excel file then starts getting processed. So you kind of have these historic Excel files that is not changeable, and then you see that as the history of all of the transactions. And as soon as new transactions get in, you kind of start this new Excel file. And then that's how you kind of get the chain effect of the blockchain, where you have an Excel file with a bunch of transactions, 100 or 50 in that Excel file. And then building on the previous Excel file, you have a new Excel file. And, through some complicated cryptography, which we won't get into, they make sure that, okay, which previous Excel file you linked to, and then you have this whole history across time that you can go back in and see, okay, which transactions took place in previous Excel files, and so on and so forth.
And this is practically unhackable, right?
Yes, I mean, theoretically it's hackable, but in practice, I think currently you would have to have billions and billions and billions of dollars that you had to spend essentially to take over the network, which it would cost you much more than you would gain essentially.
And you're saying that because it's all distributed, right? There's all of these nodes that a potential hacker would have to gain access to in order to corrupt the system.
So essentially how it would work is obviously the nodes are doing work to process these transactions, right? And you not to go too much in detail of how that would work, but you have to essentially do a bunch of work to process these transactions, and you would have to do as much work as more than 50% of the miners. So you would actually have to buy the machinery to be able to take over 50% of the network, which is a crazy amount of money that you would have to spend.
So in short, even governments and anybody that has that access wouldn't be able to sort of get the resources together to do something like that.
Sure. And even if they somehow would, it would not be a profitable endeavor for them.
Okay. So now you have a blockchain that you have this Excel analogy with the chains, and that's building, and you have open access to the transactions, not like a bank where you only get 3 months state and you can't go and view it again. But now to use this blockchain, I guess takes us to the next sort of question, like, which is probably the use of a wallet, right? Like, at least for the easy access, like for most individuals.
Wait.
So maybe you guys can tell us what is a wallet. Yeah. Sorry, D.
No, I was saying, I agree with you there. So it's, basically building off of this technology. Now you have the asset or the currency that is used to transact seamlessly peer-to-peer on the blockchain. But the wallet is where you keep your funds, much like we keep our funds in a bank account. Maybe you guys can shed some light on that for us.
Yeah, so let me give it a try. So in a bank account, I think most people are familiar with the fact that these days they don't have the actual cash. They don't have banknotes in your bank account. It's just a bunch of numbers that represent the cash that exists, and that is in a database in a software system on the bank servers. And if you want to access those, you have to authenticate yourself against the bank, online banking or the banking app. You prove to the bank that you are who you say you are by putting in your password, and these days your maybe facial recognition and so on and so on. And then they say, okay, we have enough proof that you say who you are, and therefore we will honor the request for the transaction you want to make. Above spending 1,000 Rand, $1,000, sending it to a different account. Now, on the blockchain, it's both very similar and very different. So there's still a record on a computer system of the funds that you own. But it's not on one computer. It's on all the computers that are part of the blockchain network. And the way that these funds are held and proven that you can spend them is through something called public and private keys, which is a cryptographic concept. But if we try and just explain what they do. So a key is a series of alphanumeric characters, and the public key and the private key are combined in a mathematical way. So the one is derived from the other one. They linked. You don't have to care how they linked, but they are related, tightly related to each other. And on the network, your public key is also your address. So for example, your Bitcoin address. And if someone sends funds to my public key, because it's public, anybody can see it, it's now under my control. But the only way I can spend it is by using my private key to sign the transaction and create a signature. Now, a signature is, again, a cryptographic concept, but for the analogy that fits very nicely is if you want to do a transaction in the physical world, you will sign a document with your signature, and that proves that you've given an authority that this may happen. And that is similar to what a private key can do on the blockchain. So you create a transaction, which we put into this Excel file, as previously discussed. So there's a new line, but attached to that line is now a signature. And the signature says, I, who own the funds at this public key, the public blockchain address, can sign that I want to spend it with the private key. But the beauty between the private and the public key is the public key can then be used by all the other thousands of nodes on the network to confirm that it was signed by the related private key. That's why there's a relationship between the public and the private key. The private key can create the signature. The public key can verify that the signature was created by the private key. And that way, it's like you don't have to trust a central authority because everybody can confirm that this is a legit transaction and wasn't a lie.
And that's like a super uber two-factor authentication, essentially.
Yes, in a certain sense.
Yeah, because I mean,
Well,
if you talk about a key, I mean, just to clarify that for
mm,
everybody, it's essentially a password, right?
yes.
It's a password that you type in, or whatever you might use, like generally, right? So that you sign that. It's a password that you choose as
Sure,
your personal key, right?
sure. But in this
Yeah.
case, you have both a private password and a public password.
Okay.
And the
Okay.
reason why it's not like two-factor, just to explain why we are hesitant to say it's not like two-factor authentication, is
Yeah.
obviously with two-factor authentication you would have a password and then some phone to be like, okay, yeah, this, like two-factor, right? To validate the password. The problem with a private key, or is that, well, maybe not a problem, but is if you lose your private key, that's the only thing that allows access to your funds, right? So that's why it's very important for a person to keep their private key private, because that is the way that your funds will be spent. Essentially, if you think of something like, this being a check, somebody signs a check and the public key can be used to verify that that signature is correct. If I have that private key, I would be able to legitimately forge that signature, and the public key will still say, yes, this check is correct, right?
Well, it wouldn't be a forge. It would be the actual signature.
Yeah.
That's
Sure,
the thing.
sure, exactly. But I mean,
Stealing someone's
I'm not allowed to sign it, but I would be able to do the signature, exactly as the owner, and the money will be spent because people will say that is the correct signature. So that's why I'm trying to using the forge analogy of a check.
So just to dumb it really dumb it down, like a wallet, where does a wallet live? I know you've got a hardware wallets, but we're not going to get into that. So just a wallet is essentially an app or
Extension.
an extension on your browser that you sign into, and that doesn't, it's something that you sign into, right?
Well, I think a wallet is a bit of a conflated term, right? So I think it's probably worthwhile to try and disambiguate the concept. So obviously, you get these wallet apps, and something like MetaMask or something that's a browser plugin, or you get a phone app or something like that. So I would draw a distinction between wallet providers and the actual wallet, right? So usually these apps are things that allow you to use your wallet in some way, right? Or MetaMask is a thing that allows you to use your wallet.
But if you say your wallet, you mean your set of public-private keys.
I'm getting to that. The wallet, as defined originally, as in your wallet in the blockchain, is purely the combination of your private and public key. Now, it's a bit of a strange concept because you're going to say, I have funds in my wallet, right? Which is not, it's a bit of a weird concept because it's not really in your wallet. If we can go back to the Excel analogy, right? All that happens is you have this record of funds were sent from X to Y, from K to L, right? And it's just this public record of where funds got sent to, right? But if you aggregate all of these Excel spreadsheets, you'll be able to see to which public keys all of the funds went, and you'll be able to see how much funds that specific wallet has, right? So it's essentially essentially a public record, just like and that is essentially what it means to say I have funds in my wallet, right? It's the blockchain says I have X amount of funds, and that's the only thing that it actually means. And because the blockchain says I have 1,000 Bitcoin, I'm allowed to use my private key to send part of that 1,000 to somebody else, right?
So if I just have a quick question about the security of your wallet's public key. If everybody has access to your public key, is it not possible for people to track what's inside your wallet at any given time?
Yeah, absolutely possible. So that's why the term pseudonymous is used, because it's not actual anonymity, it's just pseudo-anonymity. If no one has managed to tie your Bitcoin public address to you as a person, your identity, then it's anonymous. And you can do 10 years worth of transactions on the blockchain and no one will know, who it is. But if 10 years later, somehow your identity is matched with the blockchain address, now they can suddenly see, okay, Jacques has done the following transactions over the last 10 years. So there's always the possibility in the future of being able to have your identity linked to what you've done on the blockchain. So it's not really anonymous.
Yeah, only if they can combine the two, right? Because if that lives there, you can see what's happened. So in theory, it's actually quite easy to go and see what transactions have transpired, but you don't know who's done it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
essentially, go for it, Biro.
Sorry, if you, for example, use Luna, right? So just to have a tangible example, and let's say you have some wallet that you keep privately or whatever, and you think is anonymous, right? And now you log into Luna and you send funds to that wallet the whole time. In theory, you've already disclosed who you are, right? Because if you're thinking you're hiding your money for some reason, people will be quite easily be able to see, well, the account that the wallet that's linked to Luna is always just sending to this account, right? But if you take if you have never transferred money from a well-known address, then only will you be anonymous. But it's actually quite easy to lose that anonymity. So it's not it's a very cognitive thing that you'll have to do to keep anonymous on the blockchain. Anytime you pay somebody and the person knows I sold to X, right? If you, for example, do things where now you can start paying with your Bitcoin address at a shop, right? Or something like that. That will immediately bust your wallet's anonymity if you start commingling those kinds of
if the shop knows who you are.
Sure.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, and just to highlight again, it's not about the anonymity at the time the transaction happens. It's for all future eternity. Because if my identity gets linked to my wallet that I've been using in 10 or 20 years, then suddenly all that activity becomes public.
So that
be warned, criminals.
Yeah, and that, I guess more if they have the capacity to find you in the real world and make you part with your private key so that they can actually get access to spend your funds where it would become a problem.
Yeah, physically holding you at gunpoint and taking your keys. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's those kinds of physical Bitcoin security is something that Jacques and I have spoken about recently, where as crypto prices increase and things like that, how do you actually make sure that you're now keeping custody of your private key, potentially. And it's not much easier for somebody just to come to you and say, well, give me your private key, and your money's not in a bank, right? So there is other risks to consider as well, which is maybe an interesting topic we can dive into at some point.
No, awesome. Guys, we've run out of time, but I think we can cut it off there. But thank you so much, and that's it for the first episode. What is a blockchain? I guess we'll expand on that in the second episode on Africa on Chain, and look forward to seeing you again.
Luck.
Awesome.
Inside.
Thanks guys.
Ciao.